This time we are trying to find the very start of the Briseis water race that was essential in the Briseis tin mining operation at Derby in northeast Tasmania. We journey up the lush valley of the Ringarooma River, retracing the route followed by that intrepid female, Miss A.E. Fraser, who in 1901 travelled up into the wilds of northeast Tasmania to see the construction of the race. At the junction of the Maurice Race and Dunns Creek, they forded the river and then proceeded through forests of sassafras, myrtle and tree ferns in deep shade. She learned how to chew sassafras leaves as a tonic. According to maps and reports, the furthest source of water for the Briseis Race came from the South Maurice River on Sykes' farm. John Sykes kindly showed us where he thought the race tapped into the South Maurice River. And all dug by hand?
Yeah.
There were no signs of a weir or control gate on the river itself. The Maurice River is turned into the race from 3 branches. There are 3 screw gates for regulating the water. The weirs are composed of stones with a core of logs. Crossing the river showed a race continuing south, probably taking water from another tributary of the South Maurice River. So that maybe they did bring more water in to add to it. Well, I don't think there's much point going up any further.
Huh?
I don't think there's much point going up any further. As we explored the intake area, we came across signs of past mining activity, including an old bridge and piles of stones. Yeah, definitely an old bridge here.
Again?
Quite a nice little stream.
It is, isn't it? A lot of water come down there.
Up a little bit further. It was in an area like this that Miss Fraser camped out during her visit. The chief tent consisted of 2 rooms, one of which had 2 bunks and a fireplace. Sleeping comfortably on bags filled with dry bracken fern, she was woken next morning by the carols of magpies and other bush sounds. Looks like there's been some work up here. There's this pile of rocks here, look. So this is where the Briseis Race begins. This is the Maurice Race, which eventually finds its way into the Ringarooma Race, which then becomes the Briseis Race. Tin miners will be pleased with the amount of water going down here today. From here we begin our long trek to follow the races from the Maurice, Ringarooma and Dorset rivers, all the way through a tunnel, siphons, flumings and cuttings, until we reach the famous Briseis tin mine at Derby. Well, one of the few original screw-gate sluice gates. You wind her up and let the water go. It's interesting to know how they made that screw.
Yeah, it's very neat. It'd be on a lathe.
The race crosses Sykes Farm and then runs through what is now a plantation. Initially, instead of contouring round the ridge in front, a 70-metre tunnel was dug straight through the ridge in soft ground. The line of native trees in this aerial shot generally shows the location of the tunnel and the race in the plantation. We were not sure whether this hole was an air vent in the tunnel or just a section that had collapsed. This is not the hole in the rock, it's the hole in the road.
Preferably not, because I don't want to have to fish it or you out of there.
Yeah, apparently it does it to save going round the hill.
Yeah, well it makes sense.
It wasn't in the original plans apparently, they did it when... Yeah, we saw a nice big one down near the river, back at Trina. Yep.
That is definitely it.
Yeah. This is where you get into it. Good place for leeches.
Wonderful place to leak. We can probably cook some.
This is a photograph taken where we are now. It's exactly the same place, I reckon. Yeah, it's definitely not a good idea to go inside. There's no way I'd be going in there. Oh, that's really great. I really appreciate this. Bit of history.
Yeah.
A lot of history.
Yeah, no. A lot of hard work went into it, so...
Oh, it's nearly unbelievable actually. Imagine what it would have been like to dig a race like this all the way to Derby, nearly 50 kilometres long. It took 3 gangs of 100 men 15 months to complete. Because this water race goes all the way to Dunns Creek. But I suppose looks like there's been some...
It's all falling in.
Yeah. We follow the race a short distance through the bush. In this section of the Maurice Race to Dunns Creek, it actually collects water from 3 other small streams. Our next destination was Dunns Creek, where we hoped to find a major intake, racekeeper's hut and gauge boxes that measured and regulated the water flow. Initially, we were confused by the modern weir across the creek. Wonder where the race went. We eventually found the race some distance up the bank and higher than the creek. What do you reckon? That's what I think. Well, it wouldn't be any further up the hill. How would they get the water up there? Obviously, the actual inlet from Dunns Creek had to be further upstream. There is another water race that's coming around that hill over there and comes into this creek. That's the one that comes from John Sykes' place, and that's the one that's got the tunnel on it. And it kind of joined up with Dunns Creek, so they collected water from about 3 creeks further over. We were also looking for the junction of the race from South Maurice River with the Dunns Creek inlet. Up there. That looks like a bank, doesn't it? Yeah, I bet this is it. This is the old race, look. See, Roger? What? Run through here, look. What? That's definitely a water race. Piece of tin here. Here's where the old hut used to be. Just here we saw 2 distinct races. This could have been where the 2 races were joined, with Fluming crossing Dunns Creek. I seem to recollect reading somewhere that you actually had to walk up the creek a little bit to find where the sluice boxes were. I think this is where it started. There's an iron, there's a steel spike in here. Yeah, I reckon that's part of the wall that used to go across here. So now we were pretty sure that we had located the other major intake of the Briseis Race at Dunns Creek. From here we could follow the race through the bush and around the eastern edge of the upper Ringarooma Dam. In our next episode we will track the race around the dam and through farmland running parallel to the Ringarooma River and East Maurice Road to reach Ringarooma. On the way we would search for Crush's siphon that crossed Carisbrook and puzzle at a photograph that gave us conflicting information.